It's time for The Verdict. The Verdict is a lively discussion of current events and legal issues pertinent to Oklahomans. The Verdict is hosted by Kent Myers and Mick Cornett. It's time for The Verdict.
And welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here for a very special show, and our guest is a very special person, Governor Brad Henry.
How appropriate it is on our 200th show. Yes, folks, we've been on the air for 200 shows. There were a lot of people around that didn't think we'd be on for 2 shows, much less 200. But how appropriate for our 200th show to welcome back the guest that's been on our show more than anyone else, the Honorable Brad Henry. Last week, the governor joined us and we kind of took a look back on 2004. This week, we're going to take a look ahead to see what we can anticipate in 2005.
We'll visit with Governor Brad Henry when we get back on The Verdict.
It's doubleheader action this Saturday on JP Sports. Kentucky travels to Georgia and Florida battles Vanderbilt.
Log on to ksbitv.com today and get all the latest information on Oklahoma's family station. Check what's coming up next on Hello Oklahoma. You can find it all: fashion, community, recipes. Send us your feedback and tell us what you like about KSBI. ksbitv.com.
All children deserve a life with hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
How much are you paying for internet service? $21? $23? Aren't you being charged too much? We think so. With People PC Online, you get unlimited internet access for only $10.95 a month. Go to peoplepc.com now to try us free for 30 days and compare us with your current ISP. With People PC Online, you get internet service for less than half of what the big guys cost. And that's just the beginning. You also get more local access numbers than AOL, plus a smart dialer that automatically chooses the fastest, most reliable number. So you always get the best connection. All for just $10.95 a month. Try People PC Online free for 30 days and see for yourself. Go to peoplepc.com for a quick 3-minute download of our easy-to-use software. Or call 1-800-620-7123. People PC Online, a better way to internet.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, who's going to introduce our guest.
We're once again honored to have the Honorable Brad Henry, the 26th governor of the state of Oklahoma, with us. Governor Henry is making his 11th appearance on our 200th show, and these are kind of anniversaries for both of us. And I'm not going to run through Governor Henry's credentials again. We've done that 10 times earlier. We're pleased to have you back, Governor. Thanks for joining us to take a little prospective look at 2005.
You bet. What an honor to be on the 200th show, and you guys do a great job.
Well, Mick and I have been together for almost all of them, and we're still here. We hope there'll be 201.
Governor, one of the issues that keeps coming back, and both the legislative side and from the governor's office, is tort reform. You had a proposal last year. Something got passed. What was the difference between the two, and where do you stand here in January of '05?
Well, we laid on the table last year and proposed to the legislature the most sweeping, broad-based, comprehensive tort reform in our state's history. ultimately, and you know, it's foolish for anybody to think that you put a broad, comprehensive proposal on the table and the legislature is just going to embrace it in total. I mean, that just doesn't happen. That's not the way the legislative process works. The way the process works is you go through committees, it can be amended, it goes to the floor, it can be amended, then it goes to the other house, and the process starts over, and ultimately both houses have to agree on a version. And you know, I wasn't so foolish to think that the exact proposal that I threw out last year was going to be passed. But I am proud that probably, and you know, I don't know the exact percentage of it, but about 90% of what I proposed last year at the beginning of session was ultimately passed by the legislature. And it is the most sweeping, comprehensive tort reform ever to pass in the state of Oklahoma. Now, there were some things that were taken out of it that I will be discussing with the legislature, and hopefully those things will be back on the table this year. Are we ever completely satisfied? No. Was the bill that we passed, and remember, we passed tort reform in the past 2 years. 2 years ago, I proposed and brought a group of doctors and lawyers together, and we hammered out details on some pretty significant medical malpractice tort reform that really, by the sheer numbers, is working. We've already seen the filings of medical malpractice claims down by about 60 to 70%, according to the insurance company that handles most of these claims. So it's beginning to have an impact. It's making a difference. It will take some time for that to really be felt in terms of medical malpractice premiums reducing or being held in check. But it will work. It will work. And so we've done some good things. We need to continue to work on it, and we will.
Do you believe that Oklahoma's current tort reform laws hurt business in Oklahoma, or do you think they're about right?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question. I really don't know how to answer that.
Well, that's the Republicans allege. I mean, they allege that it hurts business.
In terms of, and we don't want to do anything to hurt business. We want to help business grow and prosper, and that's been a hallmark of my administration since day one. That's what I've instructed my Department of Commerce people to do is go out and help us figure out policies and ways to grow business, help us eliminate the obstacles and the red tape that business runs into. But obviously there's always more that can be done, and I think we have to listen to the business community. We have to listen to all of the people involved. We have to be reasonable. I have to govern all of the people. I can't just govern one group or the other. And so we have to all sit down at the table, try to find the common ground that we can all agree to and move forward. And that's what it's always about for me. It's a bipartisan approach. I want to listen to good ideas from both sides of the political aisle. I don't think either party has a monopoly on good ideas. I've embraced ideas from both parties. But we need to continue to build forward. I think there are certainly areas where our tort reform laws should be reformed and could be reformed that will help business.
Let me ask you a question in that regard. I know one of the things you were proposing did get passed in that regard, and that's the establishment, at least legislatively, of business courts. Courts to handle specialized, complex business disputes, and that did become law. And I think it kind of lateraled the responsibility to the Supreme Court to set that up. Can you give us an update on where that stands?
Well, it's in the hands of the Supreme Court. I don't know exactly where it is in the process. I've just been so busy on other issues lately, but we essentially, the legislature essentially authorized the establishment of business courts in the two largest metropolitan counties in the state of Oklahoma, and we directed the Oklahoma State Supreme Court to write the rules that govern business courts, and I'm certain that they are in the process of doing that, but I don't know exactly where that is in that process.
A little different topic, but still under tort reform. There was some publicity about some kind of an ad hoc agreement not to reconsider tort reform this session or for several sessions hereafter. and some people saying they weren't bound by that agreement. Are you bound by any agreement not to consider tort reform?
Of course not. I'm not personally bound by any agreement. I've not signed any agreement. That was much ado about very little. There were a whole lot of people that talked about that, but essentially there were 4 or 5 private organizations that agreed among themselves that they were going to allow the provisions of the tort reform measure that we passed last year to have time to work, and that they wouldn't pursue attempts to undermine each other, because these were opposing groups that came together, doctors and lawyers, hospitals and others, and they wanted this thing to give this thing some time to work. I think that's a reasonable approach, but there's not a member of the legislature nor anyone in the governor's office who is a party to that agreement. Again, we will always continue to review legislation that we passed, review our legal systems, and determine if we need to make further changes. And I suspect there will be plenty of discussions and debate this year.
Let me jump in here and get us to a break. We're visiting with Governor Brad Henry. You're watching The Verdict. More with the governor when we return.
Blankenship has stopped at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play. Leaving it 4th and 7 on the Tiger 46-yard line. 38 seconds on the clock. The Tigers have no choice but to go. Wiggins in to do the kicking. Here's the snap. And the kick is away.
An important message for users of the drug Vioxx.
The FDA warns that those who take Vioxx may double their risk of heart attack, stroke, or even sudden cardiac death.
On September 30th, 2004, the largest prescription drug recall in history was issued for Vioxx. However, researchers have suggested that Vioxx should have been withdrawn years earlier.
Merck, the multi-billion-dollar manufacturer of Vioxx, may be to blame for your heart attack or stroke. You could be entitled to a large cash award, but you need to act now to preserve your legal rights.
The law firm of Robert Goldwater and their affiliates know how to make companies like Merck pay for their mistakes. Call for a free case review today. Get the justice and financial compensation you deserve.
Have you or a family member been the victim of a Vioxx-caused heart attack or stroke? Call the law firm of Robert Goldwater right now. Get the compensation the law entitles you to. Call 1-800-421-5200. That's 1-800-421-5200.
American Express Tax and Business Services. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. American Express Tax and Business Services. In Oklahoma City, the phone number is 405-843-5311.
Coming up Thursday on Hello Oklahoma, if you want a chance to win some scholarship or grants for next semester, the time to apply is now. We talked to a local organization about how you can obtain some of their scholarship money.
And of course, trout season has just begun. We'll talk to a fisheries biologist about reeling in the catch of the day.
All your top news stories of the day, including updates on the recovery efforts from the California mudslide.
Interesting weather, that's for sure, and I'll have all of our details around Oklahoma as well.
Watch Hello Oklahoma every weekday morning from 6:30 to 8 on KSBI.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're visiting with Governor Brad Henry. Governor, workers' comp has been an issue that has been front and center during your tenure. You had a commission that's out there working on some policy or some papers or what? Where are they in their process?
Well, at the end of last session, I appointed a group of bipartisan experts, some of the brightest minds in Oklahoma's workers' comp system. All the stakeholders are represented, about 15 of them, and I said, I want you all to come together with very diverse interests and look at other states, look at the 10 lowest cost states, and determine what's best for Oklahoma. And they've been working now for about 7 months. I expect that their final proposal will be one that I will embrace and will offer as my proposal to the legislature. It's a comprehensive, sweeping reform package that certainly will be the most comprehensive workers' comp form in our state's history.
So you anticipate implementing change or
I do. Yes,
change?
we are going to. I mean, I think workers' comp will be one of the top issues this year, and it'll certainly be a priority with us in the area of economic development and job creation. We're going to focus on education, health care, and job creation, economic development, and workers' comp will be front and center. We will have a very comprehensive proposal, and I will be working with the legislature to build a consensus around that proposal or something very similar to it.
One of the changes that is often talked about is the conversion of a workers' comp system from what is traditionally thought of as a judicial system, and of course in Oklahoma we do have workers' compensation courts, right, to more of an administrative system. Do you have a view about whether that's good policy or not?
You know, you're just talking about names for the most part. I mean, I don't care whether it's an administrative system or a judicial system. I want the best system. I want the system that will save businesses the most money and provide the highest benefits for injured workers. Remember, we used to be an administrative system. We used to be the old industrial commission, and the people back then, 30 years ago or so, didn't like that and wanted us to become a court system. So we became a court system. Now that we've circled back around, and there are those who are clamoring to go back to an administrative system. The argument is there are only 4 states, I think, in the nation that still have a court system, a court-driven system. The highest cost states in the nation are administrative. I mean, Florida and Texas, and so we don't want to be like those states. I'm not opposed to an administrative system if it saves money, if it doesn't decrease benefits to injured workers, if it saves money for our employers. Those are my goals, and that's what we're working towards. So I don't care what you call it, but we want the best system.
It won't be too much longer before you'll give your State of the State for 2005. Looking back at your past State of the State addresses, how do you go into formulating what's going to be in there, and what type of look back do you try to do at the same time trying to look forward? How do you address State of the States?
Yeah, it's just my opinion, but State of the State addresses are about the most boring addresses. State of the Union addresses. I mean, they're important, and we try to develop the best State of the State, the message that will get Oklahomans excited about being proud of the great things we're doing in this state and the achievements that we've made, and looking ahead to the future. But there, as I have worked on my past State of the States, along with my team that helps me write them, I just think, I want to say things that just aren't appropriate for a State of the State necessarily. It just seems boring to me. But I have a great team. We sit down around a big conference table, and we talk about the issues that we want to hit on in the State of the State, and we compile a comprehensive list. And usually it's way too many topics to get in there, and so you have to pare it down to the most important things. Obviously, you want to take a look back and talk about the accomplishments that you've made, possibly even talk about some of the disappointments that have occurred, so that you can look forward and talk about the legislative agenda and the things that we need to do to move Oklahoma forward. Generally speaking, I'm going to be talking about education, health care, and job creation. I want to build the best educational system in the nation, and one of the things that I want to make sure the legislature does this year is keep its commitment, the commitment that we made last year to raise teacher pay to the regional average. I believe Oklahomans want us to keep that commitment. Teachers certainly want us to keep that commitment. So that will be a very important component of our legislative agenda. We'll be looking at ways to reduce the cost of prescription medication, everything from drug reimportation plan to leveraging purchasing pools, leveraging our purchasing power. Everything's on the table. We're going to be talking about a number of things in the job creation area, from some targeted tax cuts to incentivized job creation to tort reform, workers' comp, some of the things we've talked about in this show. We're going to be talking about a capital bond project for higher education in the state of Oklahoma. It's been over 12 years since our institutions of higher education all across the state have had a major capital bond project. We have campuses with decaying infrastructure and outdated infrastructure all over this state. At the same time, enrollment is higher than it's ever been in our institutions of higher education, which is a good thing because we want to produce more college graduates, but we have to have the facilities. And so we're going to be pushing very early in session a capital ed higher ed bond project that will be funded. The debt service will be paid by lottery revenues. We've set aside specifically a portion of education lottery funds to go to higher education, and we won't even use all of those to service this debt. So it's a win-win. We'll create construction jobs all across this state, and the spin-off activity when we create these research and development facilities at our institutions of higher education, we attract jobs, we attract new businesses into those areas, into communities all across the state. The spin-off economic activity is incredible.
Let me ask you about Tar Creek. You were active last year in trying to get some help for the residents of the Tar Creek area. Do you envision that still being on your agenda this year?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're I'll be active in that until we get the problem resolved. The Tar Creek site has been the #1 environmental disaster site on the federal government Superfund list for 20 years. And it's just, it's time we make significant progress. We started a program at the state level. It's really the federal government's responsibility. All the experts, when you look at the regulatory laws and who's legally responsible to clean this up, it's the federal government and some private mining companies, most of whom are bankrupt now. But we put forth a program to get the most vulnerable citizens out of that area, children under 6 who are most affected by exposure to lead and have resulted in disabilities and various forms of ailments. So we want to get those children out. That project is underway. The deadline to close those applications was the end of last year, December 31st. Now we're going to be helping those people relocate.
Governor, thank you for coming on The Verdict.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate
it's
it.
Always
love to have you back.
My pleasure.
We'd love to have you back before our 400th show.
I hope so. I expect I will be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Show number 201 wrapping up. Kent and I'll be back with a final word when we get back.
Heritage Hall, an independent college preparatory school. Here we celebrate our scientists, our athletes, our mathematicians, and our future artists.
Our students love to learn. A welcoming school for children aged 3 through grade 12. We are a community. We are a family. We are Heritage Hall.
One more reason why eDiets.com is better.
I don't know what a net effective carb is, but what I do know is this. eDiets.com is an easy way to start Atkins. They jump-started my diet with personal meal plans, shopping lists, and experts, available 24/7. Now, I don't diet, I e-diet.
Not online? Call 800-408-7606.
If your life has been devastated by mesothelioma, the rare form of cancer caused by exposure to asbestos, you have legal rights that could result in a cash settlement worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. And it won't cost you a cent unless you win. Our affiliated law offices have won millions of dollars for victims of mesothelioma and their families. We know how to make companies pay for their mistakes. It's a fact. Companies whose employees have developed mesothelioma because of exposure to asbestos have paid hundreds of millions of dollars to the victims and the families of deceased victims. Know your rights. Get the money and the justice you deserve. And remember, you don't pay us anything until we get money for you. Get treated with respect and dignity. Get what the law entitles you to. Get the money and the justice you deserve.
Call 800-496-5437. That's 800-496-5437.
Listen to Brady's Forecast on 93.3 KKNG.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here to wrap up our second of two shows with Governor Brad Henry.
Yes, our 200th show. We're awfully pleased we were able to have the governor join us once again for his 11th appearance on The Verdict, and took a look at what we can expect in year 2005 from the Oklahoma legislature and from the governor. It should be an interesting year. There'll be a lot of things happening, and perhaps the budget crisis won't be quite so critical as it has been. Looking ahead on what's coming up for The Verdict on our 201st show, we are going to have a show about investor fraud, and we're going to have as our guest Irving Faught, the administrator of the Oklahoma Securities Department, next week.
We'd love to have your input on what show you'd like to see on a future edition of The Verdict, so you can go to our website and let us know. It's theverdict.tv. We'll see you next week, right here on KSBI. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. So long.